Hi everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying and the first video that I've recorded in the Project Suzuki Swift. If you haven't watched the first video about that, go and check it out. I'll put a link in the description and maybe in one of these corner thingies. Episode 2 is coming later this week about that, so stay tuned. But we're not talking about that today. We're here to talk about WRC because things are desperate. I think it looks like, I don't know, for me there's a sense of desperation in things that are happening right now. There's been some interesting news stories about, so I want to talk about that. So what we've seen, obviously, if you're not familiar in the saga of the 2027 World Rally Championship, obviously we've seen this switch in regulation. So the Rally 1 cars that we know right now are dying. They are to be replaced by Rally 1 cars, but very different Rally 1 cars. So same concept, space frame chassis, composite bodywork, but engines from Rally 2 cars, lower pace, lower cost, and crucially cars that don't have to be built by a manufacturer team. So we're seeing 2 private teams coming in next year alongside Toyota, who are building a 2027 spec car. And then we've got the WRC kit, which is an upgrade package that can be added to a Rally 2 car to make it compete against those 2027 cars. So far, only M Sport have committed to that. Lancia, Hyundai, Skoda have said that they're not really interested in doing a kit to upgrade their Rally 2 cars. That was apparently partly down to cost, certainly from Lancia's perspective. Skoda said they don't see the point in it, don't see the point in upsetting their current customer program. What we've seen then from the FIA is a change in tact. So one of the problems was that to enter the WRC, to be a registered manufacturer points, or constructor points as it will be called from next year, you had to register for the entire championship and enter a car into every rally. And that was a bit of a problem because obviously if you're a WRC2 entrant, used to that, you only enter 6 events. So there's this issue with getting people to enter all of the rallies, and now to combat that and that desperation thing to try and drum up some interest in the top class for next year and actually have someone for Toyota to compete against, the FIA have said that from next season, these new teams that are coming in will only be expected to enter 15 events across the 2027 and 2028 seasons. They have also halved the entry fees for next year, so they're being reduced from €440,000 to €220,000. So all of this is basically designed to try and get Lancia and Skoda and Hyundai to develop a WRC kit for their Rally 2 cars. So because even though they're not going to be building a car to the 2027 regulations, at least for now, they're trying to get them to sign up to build this upgrade kit, which is basically different front bumper, front wings and rear wing, to then be able to enter some rallies as a top level constructor. Is it going to happen? I don't know. I'm not convinced. Obviously, we have no idea what Hyundai are doing next year. I did see there was an article on dirtfish.com from Thierry, an interview with Thierry Neuville, said he's working really hard with Hyundai to try and get them to continue in some form. Will they? I don't know. There was one interesting snippet in there saying that he'd been working really hard with them for a longer period, even to get them to continue this season, because he said that was in doubt. So that shows, doesn't it, that Hyundai are not fully committed to rallying into the WRC at the moment, and that their attention is very much on their world endurance and sports car racing programs. So I hope Neuville can convince them to do something, because as he said in this article, we need a big manufacturer in this championship competing against Toyota. You know, these constructors that are coming along, these private teams, which we're going to come on to, that's all well and good. But as he said, you know, you need manufacturer teams. Manufacturer teams are the lifeblood of rallying in the WRC, so we need them to come in. Will these changes that have been proposed make that difference? Well, I mean, reducing the entry fees by €220,000 is okay. That's not even the cost of a car. To put that into context, these new 2027 cars are cost capped at €345,000, and a Rally 2 car is basically €300,000 these days, if not more. So, you know, it sounds like a lot of money, but when you come to it, you know, in the grand scheme of rallying, it's not. And when you think about all these events, even if you only do half the season, well, how much are you spending per event? we're talking a lot of money here still. You know, we're talking many tens of thousands of euros, well into the hundreds of thousands. This is not a cheap game. So I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced, and I can't help but think maybe this is a little bit of desperation. And sadly, again, it shows how wrong things have gone. You know, we are at a point where the FIA is basically saying, crap, what can we do to get people to enter this thing? And it's sad, really sad, that we have persisted with this regulation set that no one really seems to want. You know, Toyota were pragmatic enough to say, whatever regulations you go with, we'll have a car for it. So we could have had Rally 2. Rally 2 could have been the top category, and we would have had Toyota, Lancia, M Sport, Skoda, all with top-level cars next season, probably Hyundai as well, because they probably would have at least made customer cars available. And instead, we are in a position where we have Toyota, and we're going to have some privateer teams for a couple of rallies, and we're going to have an M Sport Fiesta, which is a car that's been out of production for God knows how many years now, with a bigger spoiler on it. It is such a mess. A mess. In fact, the word mess doesn't even cover it. What an absolute cock-up. So, yeah, I mean, it's good that they're trying to do things to encourage people to participate, but I'm sorry, it's just ridiculous. I'm seeing so many posts online from people saying, just asking what the hell we're doing. You know, why have we put ourselves in this position? Why didn't we just make Rally 2 the top category, even as a stopgap? This whole 2027 regulation thing, this Rally WRC kit, it's just all, oh my goodness. I'm sorry, I know some people are trying to be more positive. I watched a video on the Hot Stage channel. Bless him, he's trying to be, you know, people are trying to be positive, but I just don't see anything to be positive about. To me, it just seems like an absolute cock-up. We will move on to one of the constructor teams, though, because since that talk about relaxing the entry requirements, Project Rally 1, Pro Speed team in Belgium behind that, they have said, and in another article on Dirtfish, you know, they've said that they're planning to have 2 cars at Monte Carlo still. That is their hope, depending on how things go with testing, which they should start in September. Interestingly, they've said that they're going to focus their efforts on tarmac for now, so that is where their development priority is right now. Obviously, it makes sense if you're planning on starting at Monte Carlo. They have said, though, that they are targeting, based on this new requirement, maybe 5 rallies next season, so we'd probably see them for about a third of the season. That might include a couple on gravel, it did seem to suggest, but yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You know, they're clearly still a long way off. You know, they've talked about having lots of, I think, 6 tarmac tests planned during this year, so they're obviously trying to get the car ready and developed and be in a position to have 2 cars at Monte Carlo. They still haven't selected an engine supplier, so you know they're clearly a way off. You know, the initial running I think is going to be done with a Skoda engine. You know, they're even talking about having their own engine homologated. So you know, there's still some big questions around that car and around, you know, the exact direction they're going to go. You know, designing your own engine is no small game. You know, I think Lionel Hansen said, you know, it's going to be at least the middle of 2027 before they have a customer car available. You know, for me, if they do go down the path of their own engine, that is, you know, that is ambitious, isn't it? It's going to take a long time to develop their own engine. Maybe in 2027 they would use the Skoda engine and then, you know, look to move on to their own engine, or, you know, maybe they'll do a deal with another manufacturer. But, you know, they're targeting 5 rallies. Considering how far along they are in terms of development, I think that's actually fair enough. You know, if you were developing any new rally car, you know, this is nothing to do with the regulations as such, but, you know, that makes sense, doesn't it? And that was nothing unusual. You know, if you go back in time when we had a new manufacturer enter the WRC, they might not do a full season to begin with. So, you know, that's perfectly fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. When we will see the other constructor, you know, WRT Rally 1 Spain, when we will see them enter, you know, when we'll hear how many rallies they're going to do, they're obviously not quite as far down the path. That said, RMC Motorsport, who are the technical team behind that, you know, they're very proficient at building cars. So, you know, maybe we'll see a similar number of rallies from them next year. But it just shows, doesn't it? You know, those 2 new constructors, it's going to be 2028 before we see them on a full-time basis. It's going to be at least 2028 before we see any other new constructor coming along, certainly before we see any other new manufacturer coming along, you know, full manufacturer team, I mean. That said, I think if we were to see a new manufacturer come in, it's probably going to be 2029, which is even further away. So all of this shows, doesn't it? You know, we are in a very, very difficult position. The FIA has put itself into a very, very difficult position. So you can see why they're saying, God, please, we'll make the entry fee cheaper. You don't have to do all the rallies. It's that word, isn't it? Desperation again. It feels desperate. And I said in a comment, I think that was on the Hot Stage channel, it shows, doesn't it? You know, we've been building to this for years, almost a decade. No, a decade or more. You know, because if you look at the 2017 regulations, they, while spectacular for all of the drama that they brought us, they were not a set of regulations that were introduced with long-term thinking in mind. Yes, I know a lot of people liked the cars, they enjoyed the action, there was lots to enjoy about it, but it was not a long-term solution for the sport. It was short-term thinking. Those cars were too expensive, they eliminated privateers, they drove out Citroën, they were just too expensive, too complicated, too much. And in the long term, I would argue that has damaged the sport. And then we went to Rally 1, hybrid, rushed, not thought out, didn't offer anything for manufacturers, wasn't actually a very good hybrid kit, didn't do anything to sell, and then was scrapped. And then since then, you know, I've had this toing and froing. Well, should we go for Rally 2? Should we go for something else? Should we go for the space frames? It's, where's the strategy? You know, where is the strategy in the WRC? And right now, when they're visually, you know, the optics of this are like, they seem a little bit like they're scratching around saying, oh crap, you can add a bigger spoiler to your Rally 2 car and we won't make you do the rally, all the rallies, if you promise to compete next year. It's not a good look, is it? It's really not a good look from my perspective. And I have to say that I'm really sad to see the WRC in this position. You know, they're talking about the long-term future. You know, the new regulations are going to be, you know, a 10-year thing and having stability. Well, where's the stability been for the last 10 years? You know, it's a shame, isn't it? It's a real shame. I only hope that with the new promoter on board, we finally start to see some direction and strategy. I hope they start to have some influence on the FIA and say, look, what is the strategy here? What is the long-term vision for the sport? What are we going to do? You know, I don't like these regulations. I think I've made that perfectly clear. But if they're the regulations we've got, okay, now we need a strategy. We need to make sure that we engage and offer value to manufacturers to get full manufacturer teams in. If you want constructors, fine. You still need full manufacturer teams making the investment. And we need to know, you know, what comes next. You know, I think it's all well and good talking about the 10 years of these regulations. I would like to see them already having discussions about what's next so that we avoid being in this situation again, so that we've got a long-term strategy for the future of the sport, so we don't have this happen again. So anyway, I'm going to stop ranting. This has been a very ranty video, and I'm trying to avoid that. I should be more positive. Sadly, with the WRC, there's not that much to be positive about, is there? No, that's not true. We've got a very good championship battle this season, haven't we? Very exciting. And I'm sure whatever cars they're driving next year, the drivers will deliver excitement and will deliver a good championship, even though it's going to be a Toyota that wins, isn't it? So we'll see what happens. What do you think? What do you think about the change in rules for how many rallies you have to enter? Do you think it will make any difference? Do you think cutting the entry fee will make any difference? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think Thierry Neuville will be successful in getting Hyundai to stay in some capacity? Let me know about that. Otherwise, all I will say is, well, no, I have to say this, don't I? Make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. It's very helpful indeed. I'm grateful to everyone that has done that recently. And the last thing I will say is thank you for watching. I will see you next time.